All right, good morning, folks. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Let's make sure we're good. All right, good morning. Facebook, we all good. 1 2 1. Let's go over to LinkedIn. Let's do this. Yes, expect an earlier time. This next couple days. School I teach at is on spring break, so you know me, I'm a early riser as it is. So I'm gonna do what I got to do. 1 2 1 2. All right, LinkedIn, we're good. And let me just check YouTube real quick and we'll get right into it. Man, has it been an incredible week? Yes, it has. Let me tell you. All right. No. Just make sure we're good. Mic check. Facebook, YouTube. All right, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're all good. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you may be listening to this. Good day. We'll say it like that. Good day. Welcome to Faith-Based Fridays. First and foremost, let me just introduce myself to any newcomers, anybody that may be new to my world. My name, Aswan Crookshank. I am your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. And what I do, what I created, what this whole business, this whole movement is all about is taking the lessons that you learn on the football field, more in particular, the teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field, and aligning them with businesses, aligning them with business owners so they have a staff, a group of people, a group of employees that moves as efficiently and as productively and has the eagerness of a championship high school or youth football team. That's what we do over here in the Move Swiftly world. And every Friday, what I bring to you guys is something that I call Faith-Based Friday. Myself, one of probably the biggest accomplishment, the thing I'm most proud of, at least of this past year, is the fact that I have reinvigorated. I've been going to church every single Sunday, started back paying tithes. I've been going to a church named Life Church that I've been loving, and seeing that I'm in the content creation game fully now. You know, this is what I do in terms of teaching or teaching, educating, in terms of all the things I do. I have, recognized as I've gotten older how important it is to keep that faith and develop that faith in something that's bigger than yourself. So that's what we do over here every single Friday. We'll go over the sermon that I received the previous Sunday, and I think it's a perfect time, right? It's the perfect time to re-listen to whatever you, especially, seeing that Fridays are usually the time for the weekends and people are going out and doing all sorts of activities that I ain't gonna get into right now, but it's a great time to just reflect on what you learned the previous Sunday and get ready for, the next Sunday, 2 days from now. So before we get into all of that, let me just through a few announcements really quick. Speaking of Life Church, I am a group leader at Life Church. If you are interested in free boxing lessons, just hit the QR code that you see right there on the screen and you will get all the information. I'll send you the information of where we are, how often we do it. Again, this is something for everybody, regardless of where you are in boxing and things like that. It's a free boxing lessons in which you have an opportunity to get better. You do not want to miss out on that opportunity. Also, as I mentioned in the intro, hold on, let me get a second. My Wi-Fi is acting a little funny here. Let's see. Regardless of where you are, yeah, my Wi-Fi is acting like it ain't trying to act. What's the issue here? Wi-Fi. There it is. All right, we're good. All right, business owners. Again, I am here to serve you. 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 All right. I need you to go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. I created a 10-step process, a 10-step, just 10 bullet points about things in which you can be utilizing right now in your business to make it so you are, to make it so your staff and your employees and the people that are working with you, working for you, they have a sense of purpose and things of that nature. Just go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. And also the Patreon link. Tap into the Patreon. It's patreon.com/Aswand 44. And all of that is available. Everything I just laid out there is available at makeyourmove.com. That's makeymove.com. As you can see, you can shop, you can join the Patreon, you can book me to speak, you could just learn more about me, or you can just listen to the podcast that comes out every single day, brand new episodes every single day. All right, so let's get right into today's message. So the thing about the wonderful thing about this church, and the thing that is probably different and why I've become such a huge fan and supporter of it is, Pastor Craig Groeschel is gracious enough to lend the stage to so many other people. Last week we heard from a magician. The week prior, we heard from him, but he was talking about his book. It was through a book series. And this is actually the second time. And forgive me, guys, if I sound a little drowsy. I'm literally working off a couple hours of sleep. Not even, some people say I'm working off an hour. Like, I'm literally off a couple hours of sleep. I took a fairly long trip. I went to go see a comedy show last night, which I talked about this morning in my run. And, again, when you get going, when you're up in the morning, your body's used to a certain time, you just up and you just got to do what you got to do. And, I knew I was going to have to come on and talk about this. So it's crazy because I re-listened to the sermon, and the sermon, as he's getting on his points, I'm jumping up and down. You would not have known that I've been working off just a couple hours of sleep. So, that's the cool thing about it, right? It's like, when you commit to certain things and when you decide on certain things, it is something that truly a spirit that grabs you to say, look, you got to keep going. You got to keep going because there are people out there that are depending on you. And, the more you grow, the more you develop, the more you realize, man, look, life ain't just about Aswan. Life ain't just about me. And that pushes you in many ways. That doesn't make it so you're not as important. That pushes me in many ways. So when it comes to Robert, actually, let me look him up first, because he was someone that I didn't know about until he first gave a sermon a couple weeks ago in this same church. But when you look him up, you see internet personality, right? You see a lot of the work I'm doing, he's doing the same thing. And one of the things that I was actually talking about this morning, seeing that I went to a comedy show, and this is my first time seeing this lady act, or her act. I'm always thinking of ways to continue to develop as a public speaker and continue to develop as a public figure in general. And whether that be through me giving sermons, whether that be, I'd always jokingly tell people, hey, I haven't ruled out being a stand-up comedian, whether that be for doing something, I don't know, emceeing, and hosting workshops. Workshops is kind of where my bread and butter is, and what I've done, what I've done previously. I've done a lot of workshops. But you have a guy, first of all, last week, you have a magician, somebody that wins America's Got Talent. Now you have this internet personality, and he's preaching and stuff like that. And he's bringing that unique perspective. All of that stuff, being able to just witness that stuff every single day and make it part of my lifestyle, make it part of something that I do. It's so, so gratifying to see that. So he has it just like the magician last week. He has a very, very creative approach towards I just read it. He has a very creative approach towards engaging the audience. So he starts out, I'm going to let him do the intro, and then he gets into a story about David and Goliath. And here's the thing about this church and the way it's structured and the way it's positioned itself to really attract people like me is they don't judge people. They don't judge people at all. So he gives a story about David and Goliath, and he mentions that, oh, here we go again. Of all the stories you can tell, David and Goliath is that story, this, that, and the third. And he was talking as if everyone knows about it. If I can let me give a better intro because you guys can barely see me. He was talking as if everyone knows about it and this, that, and the third. And me, myself, someone that did not grow up in the church home, did not grow up in a family that made me go to church every Sunday. The only thing I actually know about church is the Catholic school that I happened to go to that recruited me based on the things I was doing as a football player. So, excuse me. So, when he mentions David and Goliath and he kind of mentions it, the tone, and again, I'll let it play in a second. I just want to give you some backstory, some context here. When he mentions it in this tone as if, oh, everyone knows the story of David and Goliath, I was kind of not ashamed to say, look, I don't really know the story as well outside of what, other people have said certain ways. I don't really know the story as well as somebody else. And to continue to retell the story in his way, it was absolutely fantastic and absolutely on point. But like I said, I want to play the intro because the intro is usually the way he grabs your attention based on who he initially brings out onto the stage. So tune in.
Message today. I want to do something that I have never done at Life Church. Never done it. Don't be nervous. This is Pastor Craig approved. I want to do something. I want to bring somebody out here just to share with you just for a little bit before I really jump into this message. And the reason I want this person to share something with you is because I had no clue they would be here today. And this person, in my opinion, is one of the most influential communicators of our generation. And so this is a surprise across every location. They're about to come out. As soon as they come out, you're going to know who they are. Don't freak out. I actually want you to welcome them. But I just want them to share just before I get in the message. Is that okay? Come on, across every Life Church location, can we just give God some praise as they come out?
Audience. You see how we can Jake's in the audience?
Oh, come on, y'all can do better than that.
Everything. Just put us on that.
Don't stop talking until they talk.
Goes back to Monday, right? Artist or fulfillment. Here it is. Awesome.
Oh, that was too good. Some of y'all like, you play too much. I thought somebody was really coming out.
All right, real quick, because I got to touch on that. Artist or performer, right? You see the mix. He puts a solid mix in terms of artist and performer. He introduces himself with a something that sparks our curiosity. I'm going to do something I've never done at Life Church. I'm going to bring somebody I've never done, to bring out somebody who's such a great influence, a great communicator, all that. And he brings out a mirror. He brings out a mirror so everybody could see themselves in the mirror. So now there's this engaging thing, and now you've got people's attention. All right. That was absolutely magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. So I'll let him cook. He's going to say something similar.
Oh, but please don't let the comedy
Here we go.
mitigate.
The comedy, right? The comedy, exactly what I was telling you guys before. When you're developing in this public speaking game, when you are in it, you got to be able to inject humor, inject serious, inject so much through just telling your story. But the reality of what you have to have is you have to have the courage to go out and do it. You have got to have that type of courage.
Weight of what I said in my fake introduction. I said, I want you to welcome one of the most influential speakers and communicators of our generation. Then I brought out a mirror and said, can you see you? I want to ask you, who talks to you more than you? Who influences you more than you? Who decides where you'll go or you won't go? What you'll eat or you won't eat? What you post or what you will not post more than you? Hear me, you are an influential communicator. You are a powerful communicator. As a matter of fact, you're not just the greatest communicator that you've ever heard. You are the greatest communicator that you are always hearing. You are always hearing a voice on the inside speaking to you about you. Who you're talking to. I'm fully aware that even as I'm preaching today across every location, that although I'm doing everything in my power to preach today's word with clarity and precision, I am fully aware of the fact that what's most important is not just what I'm saying to you, it's what you are saying to you about what I'm saying to you. That voice is what is critical. That voice is what is important. Because I could be saying to you, "Who God's going to open up a door for you." You could be saying, "Well, he should have done it last year because it's too late now." I could be saying that God is going to use your suffering and that suffering and the pain that you're going through. He is using it to form you into the image of Christ. And you could be saying to you, "I shouldn't be going through this anyway." I'm telling you, it is the inner narrative that will always navigate the direction and the trajectory of your life. And I want to know today, who are you talking to? How are you talking to you? Some of you would slap somebody if they talk to you the way you talk to you. But what are you saying to yourself? What is that inner voice? That is the voice that is critical. Reminded of this boxer who one day won this championship. And as they're giving him the belt, he's celebrating and all excited. All of a sudden, he looks at the camera as they're handing him the championship belt. And he goes, "You see that? You see that? I am somebody. I'm not a loser." And the person that handed him the belt was like, "Who are you talking to?" All of a sudden, you find out this boxer's story, and his father was verbally abusive his entire life. And the way he would win each match was to picture the face of his father on his opponent. And then in a championship moment, we realized the inner dialogue that was going on in his life. I am convinced that life is little about the external confrontation that you face and everything about the internal conversation that you are having with yourself. Who are you talking to? Brings me to my text today in 1 Samuel chapter number 17. I know some of you that when you came to church today, you're like, "For real? David and Goliath? Is that what I came to church for today?" Because let's be honest, everybody knows this story. This is a classic story.
All right, so I'm going to pause him here because it was at that point in the sermon, like I was mentioning to you guys earlier, that as common as David and Goliath actually is, being someone who did not grow up in the church home, did not grow up in a place in which my parents forced me to go to church or forced me to read the Bible or forced me to know every story, this was incredibly gratifying to be a part of, because I didn't feel judged. You know, someone who's up there preaching, just like last week, someone who's up there preaching, you know, you get a magician who's up there preaching. It kind of gives me the green light, or gives me the courage to say, hey, just because you didn't, you know, grow up in a church home, or just because you didn't have certain things, you weren't around pastors, or you weren't reading the Bible as religiously as other folks, does not disqualify you from getting God's blessing, right? Doesn't disqualify me from going out there and preaching. So it doesn't disqualify me from doing these faith-based Fridays. It doesn't disqualify me from continuing to develop as a public speaker. It doesn't disqualify just because you didn't have certain things growing up. When you are putting together content and you're putting together your message and you're putting together your framework and you're putting together your business, you're putting together your plan, you're putting together all these things, you got to make sure they're evergreen. You got to make sure there's something that you can grab from every inch of the story, because what I'm going to let him play. I'm going to let him cook in a second. But what he starts doing is he takes a story that is very commonly known, but he creates an angle of the story. He creates a element to the story where he puts his own spin to it. He puts his own place in it. He puts his own perspective and his own viewpoint from it. And then he brings the audience with him. All right. He brings the audience with him. And that's how you develop, guys, as owners, business owners, as parents, as the folks, whether it's former athletes, whether it's parents, whether it's business owners, the folks that I strive to serve every single day. This is what you have to do. This is an essential part of the job. It's allowing people, it's letting people in just enough to where they can see things from your point of view. They can develop, they can understand it, and you can take them on whatever journey it is you want to take them on. All right. So let's let them go.
You went to Sunday school one time in your entire life. You know David, and
he hit
him with a rock. He fell down dead. He cut off his head. Hooray. That's the whole fight right there. And 4 steps, that's the entire fight. Why then are there 58 verses in 1 Samuel chapter 17? It's all that talking. It's the conversations. When we
You
run
see
up
how
to
he
Goliath,
connected that?
we notice he's not cutting off heads of the enemies. All he is doing is talking, and what he is saying has them paralyzed in fear. So I want to talk to you about 5 critical conversations that David had before he ever got to the fight. And I think there are principles from these 5 conversations that you have to apply to your life. Are you ready for this today? Come on, across every location, look at somebody and say, I know this is for you. I know this is for you.
All right, so there's a point in it.
5.
Yes, this part right here. This is where I want to. So, like I said, I don't have time to play the whole thing, but I strongly recommend you go watch the whole thing. But the element and the core of it and the point of a lot of what he's saying is you have to be yourself. And in fact, and I'm gonna scrub through it to make sure it plays, but there's a point in this message where he talks about he's not going to be the best Pastor Groeschel. He's not going to be the best other pastor. He's only going to be the best himself. And when he speaks on David's journey, he talks about what he was saying as he was going through this and going through that. And again, it wasn't about, this person being a fighter or anything like that. It was a person who was believing in something bigger than himself. And that's how he was able to defeat Goliath. So let me see if I can find it.
Armor of other people, you will never grab your own weapons.
This is it. Yeah,
Can you prove it?
This was it. Yeah, this was it.
Saul's armor. This is not me. When he took off Saul's armor, do you know what he was teaching us from this conversation? You got to work your weapon.
Come on, man.
Work
Preach.
what God gave you. You cannot fight your giant in somebody else's armor. You have got to be who God uniquely called and created you to be. I don't know who this message is for today, but God wants you to know you got to work your weapon. Hear me? Until you take off the armor of other people, you will never grab your own weapons. Can you prove it in the text? Absolutely. Look at it.
There we go.
Verse 39, it says, so he took them off. That's David. He took what off? Saul's armor. He took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. He took them off, and then he was able to grab his own weapons. I cannot grab my own weapon until I take off trying to be somebody that God did not call me to be.
Amen, brother.
Can I make a confession at Life Church?
Here it is. This is it.
I am a horrible Pastor Craig.
Come on.
Oh, I am a terrible Joyce Meyer. Oh, I'm not a good Stephen Furtick, but can I tell you, I'm the best Robert Medusa II you've ever seen in your entire life. And every time I get in the battle, I gotta work my weapon.
Come on, man.
Works his weapon.
You gotta hear that one again, folks. You gotta hear that one again. I normally don't go back, but you have got to hear that one again. You got to be yourself. Work your weapon, whatever your weapon is. And this is something that I even picked up yesterday. And I spoke about this on today's Move Swiftly Thought. It is no matter what, there is a niche, there's a group of people, there's a tribe of folks, there is a demographic of folks that are wanting and needing your message every single day. Work it. Work that weapon, and take off this idea of being somebody else. Take off of it. Take it off and start being yourself. When you start being yourself, the blessing starts happening. It takes courage. It takes faith. It takes a element of looking in the mirror. This is why this message was so powerful, because he aligned it in so many ways. It does actually take looking in the mirror, right? It does actually go one-on-one with you and say, yo, are you really ready for this? Are you really ready for this? That is what it's all about. So I'm going to play it again, and then I definitely want to get to the end, because I don't want to spoil it for you.
Can I make a confession at
Here it
Life
is.
Church?
Yes.
I am a horrible Pastor Craig. Oh, I am a terrible Joyce Meyer. Oh, I'm not a good Stephen Furtick, but can I tell you, I'm the best Robert Medusa II you've ever seen in your entire life. And anytime I get in a battle, I gotta work my weapon. He works his weapon. Says, I gotta work with what I got. Then he goes up to Goliath.
All right, final point, because this was probably one of the more powerful things about the entire message, and I see why he ended on this. So, person like me, again, who grew up in Caribbean household, was not got mentioned already. I never was forced to read the Bible, never was really forced to go to church or anything like that. It was never forced upon me. It was something that was kind of brought to me because of my love of football, right? Because of my dedication to the game of ball. I ended up at a Catholic high school, and this Catholic high school, I had my freshman year, I had a world history teacher who was actually now the athletic director at that same high school. So he's out of teaching completely, and he's, just focusing on the athletic department. And he spent some years as the Catholic University basketball coach, right? So I'll never forget this lesson, ever forget this lesson, because we were talking about history. Again, he taught the world history class, and he was also a religion teacher. You see where I'm going with this? He was known, he was working in the religion department, but he also taught world history. And there were certain lessons in history where it was like the scientists and the religion folks were kind of clashing, right? As he was teaching us history, I remember there was one lesson he was on, and he was saying something about how, the scientists would believe in that, and then the folks from the church were believing this, and that created conflict and stuff like that. And one of my other classmates had raised their hand, and they brought it up, and they were like, is that why the scientists didn't like the folks that were in the church or something like that? And then he goes, yeah, that's actually what created a lot of conflict, right? So this is what he does. He brings this message. He brings this message home by reading a actual scientific term and proving his point. So his point is that David didn't necessarily just throw a rock. He threw a name. He threw a powerful name. And the name is what allowed him to actually defeat Goliath. It wasn't about the rock he threw. It was about the name of Jesus. It was about the name of Jesus that he threw. And that's why he actually defeated Goliath. So I'm gonna let him close. I'm gonna close you out. Watch it.
It's the rock. And there's actually some scientists, believe it or not, there are scientists who look at scripture through a scientific lens, and many of them debate the veracity of this story. They say that it's no way that a boy could have killed a giant with a rock. And they have a whole report on how it's impossible, and I brought the report. This is what they say. They said that David, with the rock the size of a baseball and with the slingshot, the fastest that he could have released it would have been with a trajectory of about 90 miles per hour. And if you take a projectile going 90 miles per hour and use Newton's second law of motion and take into effect the coefficient of restitution, a projectile at that size at 90 miles per hour would generate about 3,000 pounds of force as it was released. That is, if it was traveling the distance of a pitcher to the home plate, which is 60 feet and 6 inches. But since Goliath is at least twice that far, one also has to take into effect the drag of the distance of the ball that's working against the velocity of force. Therefore, since he's further away, what was generated at 3,000 pounds has now reduced itself arguably to at least 1,000 pounds. That is, if David is throwing it straight. The problem is Goliath is taller than David, which means the angle of the projectile from which he launched it at had to be at least 45 degrees, which means that now the ball is also working against gravity, which has also reduced the force that the rock has been released. So what was 3,000 pounds of force has now been arguably reduced to about 500 pounds of force. But you must remember that there's an armor bearer who stands in front of Goliath who would have lifted up the shield to take the projectile off of course, which would have reduced the force to at least 50 pounds and taken it off course of the direction headed towards Goliath's head. But if David could throw it, and if it did work against the drag, and if it did counter the weight, and if it did go against the coefficient of restitution, if it was not off course and still aimed at Goliath's head, Goliath is wearing a helmet. And a projectile that started with 3,000 pounds of force and ended at 50, hitting a bronze helmet would not have been enough to kill a giant. So how can a young boy with one rock working against gravity, working against Newton's law of motion, working against the coefficient of restitution, working against the drag, and being deflected by an armor bearer, hitting a bronze helmet, how could he kill a giant? And I came to tell the scientists, I'm with you. He didn't just throw a rock, he also threw a name. And the problem wasn't just in the rock. The problem was in the name. Don't just have a heart of humility. Don't just have a vision of victory. You need to have a name that you throw, a name that is higher than every other name. You better throw that name against fear. Throw the name Jesus against worry. Throw the name Jesus against anxiety. There is power in that name. He didn't just throw a rock. David threw a name. And long before he had the confrontation, there were conversations that preceded the confrontation. But when it got down to it, he knew the power is not just in this rock. The power is in the name that is above every name. If you call on that name today, no matter where you are, he's able to save you, he's able to heal you, and he's able to deliver you. Would you bow your heads? I want to pray. Father, thank you.
Man, oh man. That was powerful. That was powerful. And this is officially my third time seeing that. And it's just as powerful because he's right. You know, when it comes to a story that's been told, a story that's very common, you just never know who it's going to touch because this is still all very new, very raw to me. And to think that internet personalities listed on Google as an internet personality can find a way to craft a message and create such an excitement and get people excited about God, excited about Jesus, and excited about these things, excited about developing their walk of faith. That's something that it truly, truly does touch my heart. So all that being said, again, the main website to dive deeper into everything I'm doing, it's makeyeamove.com. That's MakeYaMove.com. Let me just put it up on the screen real quick. Here you can, if you want to dive deeper into all the work I'm doing and, shop, join the Patreon, book me to speak, all that kind of stuff is right there on makeyourmove.com. We're back here on the live stream Sunday with my good friend Kimberly Blue for Stay Hired Sunday, and then we'll get into Make Your Move Monday and all that kind of stuff. So, again, man, just keep chugging along. There's a lot of great things going on in my world. Things are really, really starting to take shape in my world. A lot of happiness, I'll say like that. Happiness, happy times, as they always are. And they're happy because of the faith and the walk of faith and the mindset and the worldview that I've developed over time. So I challenge you guys and I encourage you guys to develop that walk of faith to where you can truly make yourself happy first and foremost before anybody else can actually make you happy. You're happy with you and Jesus, and then certain people can walk into your life. You'll allow certain people to walk into your life. You'll allow certain things. You'll allow yourself to be vulnerable. You'll allow yourself to develop a walk of faith that, lands the right person. So, all that being said, before I start, let me slow down before I start preaching too much. You guys continue to move swiftly. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.